Welcome to our workshop. And this is, I suppose, in a way, our end-of-year academic opportunity for academic presentation of the work that's going on in the group. But before we kick off, I'd just like to say a few things. First of all, I'd like to welcome Professor Nan Lin to our institute, the Geary Institute, and to our research group. Most of you, I think, will have been at the presentation. I think nearly everybody has been at the presentation last evening in Trinity, where he presented as part of the joint UCD-TCD lecture series. And it was a wonderful presentation. Thank you again. I think everybody was really impressed and enjoyed it immensely. So I hope you've all got the agenda for today. I think there's several copies of it here or outside, of course. I'm just going to, well, most of you are familiar, of course, with the group. I'm just going to say something about our university, our research group, what we're aiming to try to do. And it's going to be a very short presentation so that we can move on to the business at hand. First of all, you see this lovely sunny picture of UCD. This is how it looks all the time, really. We are the largest university in Ireland, and campus-wise, we're one of the largest, I think, also in the country, and growing all the time. And we are developing as a university in a particular direction, I think, in the last 5 years, and look like to be developing in that direction even more strongly as we go forward, because our new president of the university, of course, is aiming to expand the numbers of international students and international collaborations. So that will be the future, I think, of the university. If you come back in 10 years' time, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if 20 to 25% of our students are international students, non-EU students. There's enormous ambition to grow that cohort and to build a collaboration in that direction. And of course, all the questions and issues that go with that. But for my own purposes, I think it's a very exciting direction to take UCD in, because it can only, I think, enrich the work that goes on here and the academic collaboration. Within UCD is the Geary Institute. So the structure of the university, of course, is comprised primarily of institutes. We have a small number of institutes that span a range of colleges and disciplines within those colleges, normally organised through schools. The function of the institutes is to provide a space for interdisciplinary research, primarily. And the Geary Institute, where you're based now, and this, my apologies, this should be the UCD Geary Institute for Public Policy. We've recently renamed our institute. Is really a space for interdisciplinary research in the social sciences, with a strong representation from the economics discipline, traditionally in this institute, but with our new, well, he's not new now, but he has recently joined the institute as our director, Philip O'Connell, who actually was at your presentation last night, Nan, and will be here later today, this morning, to meet you. He has taken the institute in a new direction, so that we are developing a broader agenda for public policy analysis and debate and evaluation. So it's I think an opportunity to bring many more disciplines into the Research Institute. Within the institute, then, we have founded a group called the Dynamics Lab, which has an aim to explore applications of computational social science in a range of different areas. So we have, at the moment, we have research going on in the research group, which is looking at agricultural development in the sense of innovation and diffusion of new techniques. We have research in the health field, where we're looking at the diffusion of behaviours across patients, and we're also looking at the organisational structures of health teams and multidisciplinary health teams in terms of how that impacts on delivery of health services. And then we have a number of other projects which are perhaps standalone in terms of subject areas, but are research focused, but which have strong links into activities already going on in the university. So we have had a project on environmental resource management in Tanzania, looking very much at the kind of work that Ostrom is doing and looking at how collective action at a very local level can manage natural resources in a remote area in Tanzania. And I suppose a project that sits within that field is the work of Paul Wagner, one of our PhDs, about to submit, I hope, any day now. And his work is in climate change and policy networks around climate change management. And then we have some other work that you'll hear about this morning, which is on using large data sets and building microsimulation models for mapping and evaluating the use of education resources. And we're very lucky to have a PhD in our group who is also a statistician in the Department of Education. So she is spanning these two roles and brings a huge amount of expertise to her work, I think, as a doctoral fellow here. And she'll talk a little bit about her work this morning. And we have a bunch of other things going on. A little bit like what you were saying, I as the director, but I sit with a couple of colleagues from different disciplines, haven't been too selective. We're more interested in what the problem has been sitting under the research rather than the actual specific focus, and tried to pull in the expertise around that from across the university. The Institute, the Geary Institute, and specifically through the Dynamics Lab, we've sought to try to build out links to other research groups in UCD. And primarily we've tried to do that through really through the PhD supervision and our PhD program. So we run a PhD program in complex systems and computational social science, of which there are modules on that PhD program which are contributed by different schools across the university, including computer science and mathematical sciences, as well as the social sciences. And the academics involved and the schools institute involved in that also are collaborating in co-supervision on some of the PhD programs. So these are three of the groups that we are collaborating with. Now Clarity is a group that has had a substantial presence here in the university. It's now winding down simply because of the current funding arrangements, which it's morphing into something new in terms of the sort of space around Internet of Things. We're working with them in a project called Authentic, and this is the group I had mentioned a couple of times to you called Insight, which is primarily computer scientists and mathematicians working on really building large algorithms for mapping online data and big data sources. Another group that we, in fact, were originally housed within is the UCD CASTLE group, and this is a group, CASTLE stands for Complex and Adaptive Systems Laboratory, and that actually has its origins from two groups, physics and mathematics, and they opened their doors to social scientists as an experiment for a year or two, and we rehoused ourselves there and tried to sort of see whether we could build some collaboration. And it continues while we've really moved back into the Geary Institute. We continue to collaborate with CASTLE. Where two of us are presenting papers. Hang is going to present a paper. I'm presenting a paper there as part of a international workshop that they're running and looking at collective action problems. And so they're very interested to understand how social scientists understand collective action problems as part of that symposium. So then the Dynamics Lab is aiming to very much foster interdisciplinary research and training in the area of computational social science, and that then I suppose there are a range of different approaches that we're using to try to explore that space. We're definitely doing work in dynamic social network analysis, agent-based social simulation. This is really an area that I'm very interested in, which is collective decision modelling. Very much having my PhD training with Franz Stockmann, it's still very much part of what I'm interested in. And more recently, trying to build out an expertise in social data analytics. And we hope that over the next year or two, in terms of appointments within the School of Sociology, that we may have somebody come within this group and in that space to help us build that field. At the moment, most of the work going on in this sort of big data analytics is being developed by the computer scientists here in UCD, and there's lots of opportunity to see whether we can build on that expertise with this an area for social data analytics, and of course this group would like to be part of that bigger initiative here in UCD, I think. So as I said, we already have I mentioned we have a 4-year PhD program in complex systems and computational science. It's still quite a modest program. We have about 5 or 6 on our program. But in fact, we've been very lucky in that that PhD program has come under an umbrella PhD grouping called Simulation Sciences. Now, the funding for that is drawing to a close this year, but the Simulation Sciences program brought together a number of different PhD programs, one in computational biology, for example, another one driven by the business school, and there were 5 or 6 of these kinds of programs, all of which came under the umbrella of simulation sciences. So it meant that some of the students in the group in their first and second year did their training alongside physicists and computer scientists, and it gave a real feel to what we were trying to do in terms of computation, building out the field of computational social science, and we hope to sort of grow that again over the next year. So then, just to summarise, I'm not going to say anything more now at this point because we're really going to have an opportunity to listen to some of the projects in this space. This is really the kind of work we're doing in the group, some much more tentative than others at this point. Gillian is going to talk about her work in in education resource use. We have a project about to kick off in building synthetic population databases. We have a postdoctoral funding award for that, and we're going to try to build something like that for Ireland. It doesn't currently exist, and we're going to try and do that within the Geary Institute in this group. I mentioned a little bit about the work we have done on natural resource management in Tanzania. We have 2 papers on agricultural innovation in 2 parts of the world. We have some work ongoing in the Authentic project in home energy use, and that's really looking at trying to understand behaviour in the home around energy use and energy management. And we have some projects ongoing in the health area in terms of organisation of healthcare, which is the IPSE project and the PATHA project. This area is probably the least developed in the field, but there is quite a bit of interest. In our group, we don't really have that much expertise in this area, but we have been. I have been slowly developing a project with computer scientists who work in forensic analytics, and they're very interested to understand from a social science perspective how you map behaviour around fraudulent behaviour online. So there's an ambition to do something in that space, I suppose.